so it doesn't take up my. Okay, cool. So yeah, tell me what are you doing these days?
So actually what I'm doing today, I really am looking now at like a 6 month, I'm trying to go full-time by myself because I currently left my full-time healthcare job with one of the biggest healthcare providers. And doing that was like breaking such a mold for me that I took a part-time job as a behavioral health specialist. And now I'm like part-time my own business, rooted in reflection. I got, my license. I like learned all the things to make my business. And now I'm only doing it 1 day a week. And I'm seeing like, I can't stop dreaming on the Fridays. It's just Fridays. And I'm like, I can't wait to get to Friday. And now because I quit this like 8-year pension job and it was like, oh, I'm alive. I'm fine. I'm thriving. It's really hard to stay in this part-time job, like really hard because I'm seeing that it's more of the same. And what it is systems. It's like the way that they want me to lead mental health, the way that they want me to plan it for them. And their bottom line is now not congruent with mine. It's a great place, but it's still more of the same is what I'm seeing. And now I'm not the same. So I don't want to say I'm in like a problem. It's like a happy problem, but it's like a knowing, like now that I know, I can't put it back in the bag. So where I'm at is I'm trying to go full time. I'm like, in my head, I have all these ideas. And then my friend asked me the other day, she's like, what's holding you back from just doing all that? And I was like, 4 days a week of working at this place, and I'm one person and a mom of 3 kids. And like, so in my head, I'd like to go full time. I have so many ideas. And I think I want to really take even more of the educational CRT. I really love CRT, critical race theory. That's my background in my BA. So I really want to later shape it more into like workshops where I'm giving the information of like historically, historical information for communities of color, but also applying the mental health so we can see ourselves in the historical context and how that looks now in our, generational trauma. So that's my goal. So where I'm at is in between, I'm in the gap.
I'm just giving it a second because I have some sirens going on back here.
Oh, and I couldn't even tell because you were muted.
Yeah. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
A little bit, huh? Okay, hold on. Something's going on because there's like a lot of sirens. Okay, so
I
that's
can't hear
great.
anything.
Okay,
I can't hear
good.
anything, by the way.
Okay, good. So that's great. That's good to know. You're working your way into doing what you love more. And what is it that you love about what you do?
Wow. Well, if you would have asked me that last year, I feel emotional just with the question. Like, if you would have asked me that last year when I was working for a big system, I don't know. I really thought I was going to give up mental health. Like, I was in this pandemic, like, I guess I'm not going to do this work anymore. What else can I do? Can I learn how to bake a cake real cute? Like, it was this really big conundrum until I created a space that I can do what I love to do. And it sounds so cliche now that I think about it. Everyone says that, but it's like, I had to reach that like epiphany. So what do I love? I was just telling my friend that today. I love that I can do what I am good at, what is my calling, and deliver it to the people that want to receive it, that are on this journey too, that it speaks to, and do it in a way that honors them and that is like the right way to do things. Like it's the right way to do, it's the caring way to do things. It's the compassionate, it's the familialism that we need. So I love that I get to be my authentic self, welcome authentic people. And like what I say is I only want to have honest, meaningful conversations moving forward. And I get to do that in these spaces that I create. So that's what I love. And I get to change up the topics. Like we talk about shame and it can be something that's like we can put art in that. We can put journaling in that. We can put, yoga in shame. Like, we're changing the like name of shame and making it like a collective conversation, which, is warm. So I love that.
I love that too. And I love the idea of changing the name of shame, because it doesn't have to be what we experienced,
Yeah.
So it sounds great. It sounds like you have your vision, you have your vision and you're executing it in these steps that you're taking to go full time and doing this. Now take us back to before this, you got to this point, I'm really curious. I mean, when I met you, we were both participants of the Latinx parenting
Yeah.
series. And at that point, when I first met you, where were you in your journey? Like, what was, excuse me, what were you needing in during those moments, and what did it awaken for you leading up to where you are now?
Okay, that's a great question. We met and it was in your old building. It was so, I remember the pink carpet, and I was nervous, but in that moment, I had this is very vulnerable of me to say, but I had a 2 year old and a 3.5 year old. So you can imagine. And it was right before the pandemic, right? Like a year before. Little did we know we would need it so much. And it was nonviolent families, like basically nonviolent parenting, right? And I remember I was in such a defensive place of like, I feel like I need this. I really loved what Latinx parenting was posting. And I'm like, I was resonating with me, but I was very much like, but I don't need nonviolent. Like, I'm not violent, right? Like that word, just like shame, like, don't say violent. And as we did the work, I was like, I grew up in a violent home and I didn't want to call it that. So I was very much in a place of like, I'm open, but I'm resisting. And it's like for me to better my clinical skills, but I needed it really. Like what I found in that is that I needed it. So I was in a place where I remember signing up for it is because I was like standing there one day with my 2.5 year old in his high chair and my 3.5 year old in his booster seat, yelling at them at breakfast, like, why did you spill water again? I can't believe you. And they were just looking at me like, what are we supposed to say? Like, what's our role? And I'm just like talking to them like, hello. And it was like in the hands throwing up, like, what am I doing? Like they're 2 and 3 and I'm yelling at them, So I did that class. It was so good. If you want to speak to that, the community feeling and really just identifying like the feelings that were coming up. And it was such a beautiful space to bring up the feelings. And I think that's really where I needed to be at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with that a lot. I think I was really needing it too. It's interesting how like my approach, because as you know, I went with my mom, and
Yeah.
I think one of the first things they told us when we went was like, you think you're here to learn how to parent nonviolently, but really what you're going to learn is how to kind of help your inner child, how to tend to their needs, because that in most cases that's why we're reacting violently without even really processing it that way. Like you, I also was kind of resistant to the idea of violence, of like identifying with violence, because unbeknownst to me, I'm a victim of domestic violence, like I'm a survivor of domestic violence, I should say. Um, and I never quite like identified with it in that way. I don't even really think I've said that very often, but it's true. My parents were in a very violent relationship when I was growing up, and being in that class, sitting with her through it really was really transformative for our family, because I was able to see my mom as a human being, as somebody who was also learning how to parent and also learning how to deal with stressful situations and still meet the needs of the people that you're responsible for, that you brought into this world, and I think now more than ever, that message still really is what keeps me going. It's what really inspires me to keep learning with my mom and learning with my daughter, and also unlearning a lot of the harmful stuff that we've normalized in our family and in our culture. But it's been such a powerful like foundation to start this healing journey, healing all these other things that come up in parenting, but just in life in general. It's been a really great foundational place for me to identify back to, like, that experience of our class, and just knowing that we're not alone and we can heal together.
Can I share something with you? I don't think I've ever shared this.
Yes, please.
Okay. In all honesty, I was like triggered when I first saw you and your mom there. And I didn't know how to put my finger on it. Right. Because here I am defensive and I was jealous. I was like, and I remember and I liked your mom and I liked you. It was nothing about you two. And in that, I was already thinking they must have this great relationship because both of them are in this class. And another thing is I would never ask my mom to take this class with me because I would be mortified, and I wouldn't want her to because she would just make me feel worse. Your mom didn't do that. Your mom was there. And the way that you two were both honest and parallel and human beings that were parallel was so beautiful to watch. And your mom's vulnerability and your compassion, every week I was how, oh, and you guys were doing the work for us, almost for us daughters and moms. And as every week went by, I was just enamored, and it helped me put my own name to the feelings, and I remember asking Lizette, who was the facilitator, I just can't get over you call, I was so mad about them calling it violence, right? Because our own stuff. And she and like you, my parents, I was in a violent home. And I remember thinking it just meant that my mom didn't care enough about me to do the work. Here's your mom doing the work, and that must mean, and it was another opportunity to look at my own inner child. So I just want to say, having you and your mom there was beautiful. And it was so courageous of both of you. But every week I was also observing, and that's the collective healing too. And just bravo to both of you to being brave enough to sit in those uncomfortable talks together.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like I don't give my mom as much credit as I should, because I know that it is very uncommon, to have a parent that's willing to attempt to learn and grow and change even, and evolve with us. I have to give my mom credit, because she was doing this work way longer than I have been, she was going to inner child workshops and stuff when my parents were together. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I think that was a place of contention for them even, because my mom was trying to evolve and my father was not on board with that. And so I think seeing me do these workshops too, it's affirming to her that she kind of hold on. She kind of planted those seeds.
Yeah. And it's beautiful because it's almost your inner child led her there again. She got to do it over again. When you're talking, I just picture the generational healing, and imagine Corey later, my mom's been doing this work, and where will she be in that? And it's so beautiful. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm relearning everyone's schedules around here. Yeah. So I love that we have that in common, that we were both in that class, because I think I was needing some guidance. I was needing something to anchor myself to as a parent, and I was feeling alone. And so gaining other friends and other community members that were on the same path to wanting to parent differently, and then being able to welcome my mom and say, hey mom, I want you to help me raise my child. Here's how I want to raise my child. This is ideal for us, but let's just aim towards that. What was that like for you, implementing that work in your personal family life?
Ooh, yeah. It's been really hard. And it's funny, when you ask me that now, it's almost and tell me if you resonate with that, but it's almost I'm here now. So I have to go back to where it was. But when I was there, it was so palpable. It was so difficult. But now I'm in a little bit, I'm like more in the like grace period. I mean, I'll dip right back into some trouble, I'm sure. But right now I'm in such a beautiful spot. But what it was like was really difficult. Part of it was my ego of like, I'm a therapist. I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like, first of all, it was the shoulding of like, I had postpartum depression. I shouldn't have it. I don't know why I would be immune to some illness or, mental state, but I thought I should be beyond that. So I kept trying to push beyond it. And so I really remember the inner child part. It was always like, I can't do meditation. I can't do meditation. And when they tapped into the inner child meditation, we had to draw. And I transported myself, right, to my teenage bedroom. And there was a part of me, I never left that. Like I was sitting in there in so many moments I was noticing as an adult, like with my parents, like I'm back in this mode of who I am in this family. So the work started coming like as I was setting my limits. And I remember some of the hard work was also like my partner, my husband, he wasn't going to go to the classes and he wasn't going to implement the stuff, but it was something really important to me. And I remember like talking with Leslie and Lizette, like, this is really hard because I get motivated. I see you guys in class and then I go home and it's like, okay, but everybody else is not in your little woo woo class. And so what are we going to do with it? So really the thing was like, I had to just keep doing it. And I always felt like when I had these big moments, even if I was professional at work, when it was like my stuff, I would crumble. Like it felt, and I write this because in my journal so much, because I felt like it was a trap door. I always felt like an emotional trap door would open and I don't know how I was going to recover, how long it would take me to stop crying, like how I was going to build myself up. And I hated that feeling. And so I noticed it to do this work with my family. If you want to be really honest, one day, two stories. One day, I'm like, it's in the pandemic. We're in this rented house with these hardwood floors that are like creaky. And mind you, I had already taken the Latinx parenting class. Like this is like 1.5 years later, we're in the pandemic. So it's a whole nother mindset, but my kids are annoying me. I'm working as a healthcare worker at home and I'm like, they're pissing me off and I'm like stomping to their room, but with intention, right? Like stomp, like every stomp better scare you. It better terrify you. It's not what I was meaning, but it was subconsciously what I was meaning. And I'm like, and I had been doing that all week. And then that week I was just like in my self-awareness where I go to them and they're terrified. They're doing the thing that I wanted. They're scared. And I looked at them in the eyes and I'm literally like, what are you doing? Like, again, like you look like a bear. I think I passed the bathroom and I saw myself in the mirror and like, you're trying to be this big thing. And it was just my inner child. Like, you have to go and do this. This is what dad did. And I saw my dad in that moment of like, this is what you do when kids are too much. You like, this is the only way. And it was that stomping that was like programmed. My dad would stomp and his stomps would be like, it would just stop me, and it would just be waiting for that person to come in. And it was his whole creating. And I was doing it. I saw it. I was creating violence. I was creating a fear. And it was like intentional. Like, you better be really scared when I get there. And so in that moment, I just stopped and I was like, I'm not going to hit you. Like, I'm not going to spank you. And I really had to tell myself that. And then another moment, so I'm already, all of these are like interval moments of where I'm at and like having to be accountable for that aha moment later. And then another moment, we're at my parents' house and my dad, my parents love my kids. And it was, I'm sure a lot of us feel triggered when we're with our parents. When I see my dad being this like loving male figure to my kids, and to me he was terrifying. To me, he like yelled at my mom all the time, would say the meanest things to her, still does, to be honest, but like really mean things to us, really critical. He would yell. I mean, he would spank us, I would say beyond, and he's just like this tender person, and it really would piss me off. And yet the adult me would be rational and be like, well, it's good for my kids. But in this moment, I guess him and my kids had this little game, and he was like, oh, Grandpa Bear. And he did this. He looked at me because I was holding my son with this scary face, and little me was like terrified. Like, I just did the moment that you're going to hit me or something. And my kids were laughing because that's not the him that they know. And I was frozen, like, and just like frozen for like a minute that felt forever, you know, but like seeing them and seeing me, I was like, something's wrong here. You know, who he represents to me is different. And that's really when I was like, I have to do the work inside because I'm dysregulated with them. And also with my mom, I was always lashing out at her. I was always like, just being really reactive. And when I say reactive, I mean, I would leave a situation and my body would still be like pulsating and like radiating and like, just like a pinball machine. Like you just wind me up and just boo, all the things would go everywhere. And it would take me hours to calm down. And that's like after I yelled at her. So then after the calm down would be the shaming of like, you're a horrible daughter. If people knew how you talk to your mom, you know, it was just this spiral. And that's when I was like, what is this? Who is this? And yeah, that was the really like deep dive into inner child work. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It sorry, really like
They're waiting for you.
I know. I really enjoy like hearing your story and seeing these visions of you in these moments, because I think when we're doing inner child healing work and we're talking about it, it's really easy to get caught up in like what it looks like to be doing it right, to be parenting from like not a place of violence. But it's hard to see the transformation, you know, like you mentioned, being able to stop yourself and notice like, oh shit, I'm doing it again. Oh shit, I'm turning into my own experience with my parents, you know, because like you said, that's kind of all we have to go off of is like what we've seen and what's been modeled to us. I had a similar experience with Corey where she told me that I was acting like my dad, like, and she doesn't have a close relationship with him, but she identified all the things I told her about that I'm afraid of from my upbringing in me. And she's like, you're doing exactly what you told me you experienced. And I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't believe it. Like all this time I've been trying not to be like my mom, that I didn't realize my dad's qualities could come out as well, you know, like as the mother archetype, I've been trying to, you know, pick and choose the things that I love that my mom did and, you know, pass those on, but try not to pass on the stuff that was toxic or that was harmful. And I hadn't realized that I could embody these masculine qualities, you know, and it's really opened up a new chapter for us in our relationship, because as we know, like, you know, gender is not a binary, and we can embody all of these energies, whether they come from your, you know, mother essence or your father essence or your masculine or feminine. Like there's all these and a bunch in between that we can embody. And it was just such an interesting, you know, observation to see that connection. Yeah.
Can I speak to that
Yeah,
too?
please.
As you're saying, I just want to jump on that. So again, with like what you're saying, it's like these leaps, right? It's like I don't even know what the next hurdle is because I'm not like anticipating it. I'm just like letting it come. But when I tell you this is not the me that was was me years ago, and it's like such a beautiful position to be in to witness it for myself. But like as you're saying, another big one for me has been gender constructs and blowing that out of the water. Like I'm still processing gender constructs, right? And it's funny because as a social worker, I'm like, yeah, social constructs, I understand that. And it was something that was, and this is me being very vulnerable. So please have grace with me. But like, I was like, yes, we have to uphold these for other people, for LGBTQ, for people who identify that with, you know, and no, gender constructs, they oppress everybody. We don't even realize the depths of it. That's another subconscious breakthrough I had to have, right? And so I was in the mirror, and this is actually what helped me like really like it, just another level that like took off my subconscious kind of programming. I was like looking at myself in the mirror, doing my daily thing, which is AKA talking shit to myself in my head, right? Like, so I'm like looking at the mirror and it's like, you're so fat, you're so ugly. And it's like all these things, I don't even say that stuff to myself anymore, but like the usual stuff. And then I look at myself and I'm like, I said something to myself that my dad used to say to my brother, which is, I can hear you getting fatter. He used to say that to me all the time. I know it's so mean. That's a whole nother thing. But I said that one to myself and I'm like, that's not even my dit. Like I was like checking myself, like that's not even my, and I was like, who is that voice? And then I said it again. I was like, that's not even, and that's when I could identify that it wasn't even my voice. It wasn't my programming. And I looked at myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are all your dad and your mom's voices. These are their little critiques, whether they knew. And that was the day I was like, oh my gosh, what am I thinking? So in this big revelation, I just told my friend that I realized that, is I cut my hair off because my dad always was like, fat girls can't have short hair. That was a fat girl, right? And in that day, I was like, looking at myself, I was like, you know what? This fat girl is going to cut her hair. So I cut my hair off. Fast forward, I get my hair cut. I want to shave it. I have been thinking about it. And I get home and I'm embarrassed. I look too masculine. It's way more than I was ready for. I thought I was ready for it, but now I'm confronting my own programming of like this is me being very vulnerable. I was wearing like sweatpants and I was wearing my baggy sweatshirt and I had the short hair and I was with my husband holding his hand and I was like, what if they think, and then I was like, what if they think what? What if they think what? And I told my husband, like, this is really making me challenge my own. And ever since, and then I was driving away one day and somebody called me a he with my short hair. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care. And then it all made sense. Like, you can call me a they. And I was like, I'm fine. And then it all made sense. And ever since then, I've been leaning in. And then my husband said something that blew my mind. He said, Cynthia, maybe you are gender fluid. Maybe you've never explored that part. Because I've been doing more inner child stuff. So I'm like buying him Hot Wheels cars. I'm like, don't you love that? He's like, no. I was like, it's for your inner child. He's like, Cynthia, I think it's for your inner child. And I was like, no. Like, and he's like, Cynthia, maybe you're now like, and he's caught me doing a lot of other things. He's like, it's okay. And I'm like, I'm really processing my own like prisonhood in gender constructs. So
oh my God, that's amazing. When you're talking about like buying what you think his inner child needs and it's really yours, I feel like that's parenting too, right? Like you're like, don't you want this? Don't you like this? Like, wouldn't this make you happy? And my Corey's like, no, it sounds like that would make you happy. Like, no, we're different people. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. Like but I think you have to kind of take yourself back there, right? In order to even know what you like, to even remember what you like, what brought you joy, what made you excited. Like, I feel like that's really for me, what's been the most challenging thing is like giving myself the freedom to pick, to choose, because I notice for myself, like when I have a lot of options, like I always say, like, if I feel like I don't have options, then I feel stuck. Then I feel like I don't have any,
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, when I have too many options and I get overwhelmed and I don't know what to pick, so it's like either way, it's hard. And I think that really comes from a place of like not having my autonomy needs met, my needs for autonomy. Like,
yes.
Not all kids have those needs. Some kids are like, tell me what to do, I'll do it, all good, we're good to go. The kids that you try to do that with, who are not into that, who are like, nope, you can't tame me, like that's when you run into issues. And I think that was my issue with my parents and I, like they really wanted us to be like, well, rounded and just like in the normal constructs of like a successful person, like what it means to be a successful person, like have a good job, have a good pension, have a good retirement fund. But
yes.
I haven't done that, I haven't gone that route. And I think it's caused a lot of friction. And so now as I'm raising my own child, I'm trying to give her that freedom. And I'm seeing that she doesn't even really want it. She does want it, but she does also thrive with a lot of discipline and boundaries and structure. Whereas I'm like, just do whatever you want, and she's like, no, like I want to. So we're trying to figure that out. And so that brings me to like the idea of how we're doing this inner child work, but then we're also parenting children and then reparenting ourselves. What has that been like for you?
Oh, that has been like the beauty and the beast, right? It's been like the honey and the best time of my life. And it was the worst of times, it was the best times. It's been the best because I always think like, I don't think I would have be here without my children. Like, and I can't say that because that doesn't mean people who don't have children can't get here. I think for me, I was like skirting every way to do it besides my childhood. And it's been a little bit of everything. When So I think for the most part for me is my kids are holding me accountable to what I say. Um, I am opening myself to my inner child to play with them. Like when we were in the pandemic, I took time off work for stress because I was really not okay. And I made a commitment to really play with my children. And I was like, if I don't know how to like, if I'm being like too if I'm getting angry, maybe I'll just play and I'll just like be lost in play. So really, I devoted my summer of 2020 to just playing. I would go out there and play with them. I would be a little fairy in the garden. I would plant little fairy gardens with them. Like literally, we would just cultivate fairy gardens. And I noticed that that was the work of reparenting. Being in the moment for me was reparenting because my mother was never in the moment because of her own trauma. Um, she never had self-confidence because my dad was always yelling at her. I mean, I didn't even have confidence. And really, I was doing the work by playing with them and then reflecting later and really honoring who they are and taking what they're saying in the moment as like as the lessons, right? Because and then I was able to see it in myself. And really reparenting myself meant really practicing self-compassion. Like when I say it, I meant like mindfully practicing it because the old me was just mind numbingly repeating crap. So now I have to be the opposite, which is like mindfully giving myself love. And it was so hard. And I kept thinking like, but this feels very selfish, like counterintuitive to fill my cup. And it's not. So then I started to see the work of like, I'm reparenting myself, I'm giving myself kindness first, and naturally kindness comes out. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And like, I remember one day my kids were saying these like beautiful things to each other. And I was like, that's me. And the pride of that, you know? And I remember the opposite feeling 2 years ago where my son, what did he say that I was like, you know, me being better, nonviolent, I was doing this, you better get over here. If you don't get over here, that gritted teeth thing, because that's better than yelling. That's like pseudo, right? And like one time he was doing that and I was like, oh, what's that? You know, and I felt that energy. So it was really cool to then 2 years later hear them saying like they're very affectionate, they love kissing each other, they love hugging. We're always like doing a family hug, the five of us, you know, even his teenage brother. Like, so to really see that and what it was like allowing myself to let my inner child play with them, that was important because they're seeing the joy in me, and then playing with my inner child by myself. Oh, and another thing that I didn't talk about a lot, but I think is equally important is honoring my inner teen with intention. I noticed like when I'm driving, I would get into my inner teen mode. And that was almost like a good thing, a survival thing, because I'm not pissed off at who's like cutting me off because my inner teen doesn't care. She's like flowy, like she's just like, I'll get there when I get there. My song's not over, you know, I'm going to sit in the driveway till this jam is done. And so allowing my inner teen. So when I'm in those joyful moments, like I let memories come back and I'm looking at it in my adult perspective and being like, oh, I was probably joyful and then somebody misunderstood me. And that's why I lashed out, and really being able to reconcile that. But I can only reconcile it when I'm able to embody that feeling again and welcome it with fresh eyes. So I noticed that. And in that, it's all like, it was all just feeling like I don't need to force this. I just need to be more intuition led. And in honoring that came my inner child. So yeah.
Wow, super powerful work. I love that you
Mhm.
mentioned the inner teen. I think our teens don't get enough credit, you know, our the way that we treat teens, the way that we see teens, like they don't get enough of the love and comfort that I think they should have when they're trying to navigate, you know, the push to grow up. Like I think that's why teens are so angsty, you know, because we force them a lot of times we force them before they're ready to grow up, because we were forced to grow up early, you know, or we were taught that you have to, you know, get out there and start making money or whatever. And
Mm.
I feel like a lot of times we just need to love on them. They just need guidance and love and
Yes.
support, and to know they're not you know, that they're cared for, and that that it is scary to be pushed into adulthood like that.
And that exactly what you said, I didn't think it in those beautiful words, but that is the feeling that I try to honor when I'm having a big adult expectation. Like, we bought this house in the pandemic, more of like feeling pushed out from this rental place. And nobody wants to feel pushed out when you have children. Like, it's such a feeling of like, what are we going to do? So we bought this house. It felt like a huge adult move. You know, I was switching jobs. I was burnt out. My kids were starting a new school in Spanish versus preschool. And I mean, it was a lot. And I remember one day my husband was taking the kids to school and I was already feeling like a tornado. Like, it's kind of like Tia Pepa, like, y'all better get out of the house because mom is on one, right? And I could feel myself. And I said, honey, you need to go early. You need to take the kids out now because I'm feeling big emotions. And he's like right now, I was like, yeah, just go take them like to the playground early. And I made them all leave. And instead of doing what I usually did, which was like, you know, like crying in front of my kids and then feeling bad or like saying something rude, I sent them off, kissed them goodbye because I could feel it. And I let my inner teen thrash around the house. I threw myself on the couch crying. I threw pillows. I was like, ah! And I really was like, you're going to cry it out. And they had a tantrum. They threw pillows. They threw my book bag. And after like 5 minutes, I was like, okay, what is it? And it was that what you said. It's scary to do all these new things. It's still just me in here. And like, I don't know, I've never done this. And at the same time, I was trying to have a distance from my parents to make my own decisions. So it was very much my inner teen in that moment. Like, y'all see me as a mom, but really my inner teen is shook right now because there's a lot of things going on. So I let her do her thing. And then I was like, okay, what's coming up? And then she just told me, hey, that was a lot for me. I was like, okay. And then my loving inner mother, you know, was able to say, okay, so it's too much. What are we doing right now? What are we doing today? Well, today we're okay. See, so, and I was able to bring her from like this huge teenage tantrum, instead of saying like, stop doing that, which is what I usually do to her, to just like create the space for her to like be herself and then ask her and then soothe her. So once I did that, I've been doing that more. And I was like, oh, girl, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, they've been telling us, but we run away because it's just these big, scary emotions that people don't want to see. So.
Yep, I totally feel that. And I think,
Mm.
yeah, it's like something about expressing authentic emotion makes people uncomfortable. And so we've had to turn it off, keep it down, suppress it until these big moments come up when we are having big feelings and they want to be let out. And then we go down that spiral, right, of the shame, of the guilt, of like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, how can I be acting like this in front of my kids, or, you know, around my partner or whatever? And yeah, a lot of times I think it's just we're still trying to get our needs met, you know. And if we continue to not get them met, we continue to try to find something that will. And yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that and giving us these like really real life examples of what that could look like, you know. And because it is healthy what you're doing, like the way that you're communicating with your family and creating space for you to, like you said, embody that feeling of what it feels like to be that upset that you have to lash out somehow, you know, in a safe way, in a protected space. That's important, and that's healing. So thank you for sharing that. So I want to move on to our last segment, where
Sure.
we are going to do a rapid fire round of questions that I've prepared for you. This is to engage our inner children, to allow us to have some fun,
Ooh.
to get out of our heads a little bit. You know, we tend to go really deep, which is what I love about this podcast, is that we can go really deep. But I also want to remind us to be playful and to have fun and to experience joy. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. I'm going to try to get as many questions in as we can.
Ooh. Okay.
So I want to encourage you, Cynthia, to take a couple deep breaths, try to like clear your mind of anything you're holding, any physical discomfort. Just kind of like relax your body, let yourself drop in. And this is about having fun and also just letting your truth fly. So whatever comes to your mind first, you just let us know, and then we're going to move on to the next question. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. All right. Who is your favorite 90s hip hop artist?
Ooh. Tribe Called Quest.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
Ooh, a whale.
Ooh. What out of all the characters of Encanto, which one do you identify with the most?
Oh, God. I'm gonna say Tia
Or
Pepa
okay. I was gonna
for
say, or
today.
more than one.
Yeah, Tia Pepa and Mirabel. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what pop culture archetype or icon do you identify with the most?
Ooh, I really like Frida. I always come back. I hate to sound cliche, but I love Frida.
No, I love that. And what's your favorite podcast?
Ooh, I don't really listen to any more right now. I want to say Super Soul, but that's generic. I pass.
No, that's good. That's good. All right. That was it.
I wish I had more time
Awesome.
for podcasts. I need
Yeah.
podcasts. I miss my drive to work where I used to have the podcasts and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Okay. And then the last question that I ask every guest on the podcast is, how do you embody your highest self?
Ooh. I embody my highest self um, with compassion when you see me when you see me vulnerable, that's my highest self. I feel like I've always been vulnerable, and I always was like turned away for it, and like in my head about it. Oh, why did I do that? Why am I so vulnerable? And now my vulnerability is my highest self, thinking from a place of like collective compassion, collective, goodness. And like, to me, I'm making my best creative decisions, my most like inclusive. Everybody, should have access to this information, this joy. So that's when I'm in my highest self, is when I'm vulnerable.
Yes, I love that. I think
Mhm.
there is so much power in vulnerability. And it's kind of like being vulnerable is kind of like sending out a light, like a lighthouse, like it allows other people to see our wounds, but also our accomplishments, like the way that we've overcome, harm and trauma. And it gives us a chance to connect to other people that we might have something in common with. So I think it's beautiful. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable with us here and letting us get to know you better. And would you like to share how people can get in touch with you? And if you have any upcoming offerings that you want to share?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast, and I'm so excited that it's with you.
How
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. It's cool. It's like bringing it back, Um, yes, you can find me on wellmama_LB. I'm having some workshops. I'm in the middle of two really great reparenting workshops, but I'm going to offer them again. I have a 6-week reparenting workshop. I also have a shame and vulnerability workshop, and a storytellers workshop that will be coming, and a self-compassion. I mix CRT, so everything is really from a decolonized therapy standpoint. So know that up front, that's what you're getting. But it's, really history and mental health, and really seeing ourselves in it. I also have an Etsy store and a journal that you can find on my Etsy shop and on Amazon. Buy off Etsy if you can. And you can find that link in my bio of my Instagram. So thank you for letting me put that.
Of course. Thank you. And do you want to, for people who are listening,
Oh, yes.
describe what you're wearing and where
Oh,
we can
thank
get
you.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wearing my Motherhood Sweater. It's the Wu-Tang logo, but it flips upside down. And this actually really means a lot to me, because I really feel, I didn't realize it then, right? We don't know when we're doing the work sometimes, but like this was the beginning of my journey. And now I wear it as a badge, because I remember like being in a postpartum funk and thinking of this idea, and my husband's best friend, who he's pretty big at Creative Flow Arts, Juan in Long Beach. He was like, that's a great idea. And he did the logo I was like, we were having birria tacos one day, and I was like, I really have this idea. So he like printed the logo and sent it to me. And I was like, he's like, make some shirts. And I was like, no, like, so it was this one thing that he told me, like, it's a good idea. You have good ideas. And it put me on. But it's interesting to me that this was like, it was saying so much more. So it says motherhood ain't nothing to fuck with, like Wu-Tang Clan, but it's motherhood ain't nothing to fuck with. And now I'm like, I was saying that through my postpartum funk, and I feel like I've come around to it. And this was like the beginning. So,
That's so beautiful. I
oh,
wear it with a badge of honor too, whenever I wear my shirt or my sweatshirt. Like I'm just like, if you know, like
right.
yeah.
And it means all of it. It means that in like
Mm-hmm.
every perspective, the child's perspective, the me, it's like all of it. So when I
Yeah.
think about it now, I'm like, this started all of it, just betting on myself, just like listening to my friends' encouragement. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's full circle. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And you've
Yeah.
always supported like any ideas I have, and just like meeting other like-minded, like people of goodness that want to just be more of authentically themselves. Like even things that you post have, been an interval of something that has encouraged me to do something else. Like seeing you with your hula hoops and in your joy is just like another thing that's like, see, this is good. And it's like people are gravitating to your joy.
Oh, I feel the same way about you. I feel like you are just magnetizing everyone that is really wanting to learn from you, because you're embodying your work, you're embodying your healing. And that's what I think, that's what like we're really being called to do right now, is like anyone that's on a healing journey, like keep healing and share it, share the trials and the tribulations, share the good and the bad, because it's not easy and it's not pretty all the time, it's actually very dark and very difficult. But when we do it together, and when we share and identify where we are more alike than anything else, we're different in so many ways, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of us just want to love and be loved, and once we strip away all the the other stuff, we see that in each other, it's what really brings us closer together. So
Yeah.
thank you for showing us that and embodying that and sharing. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to see how your work
Yes.
evolves and your life and your livelihood.
Same to you. It's so
Yeah.
nice to be in space with you again.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.